It's, I got rid of the refugees. How you doing?
The one who said would never go to screening now has screening. That makes it really fun.
Yeah.
She just sent me all the, sent them all to you.
And when I
I mean, whatever.
Friday,
I go to the-
oh, so you we got that. No, cancel it. I have that till the 45th. Then they called me and said, how much you paying? I said, I'm asking compared to 155 or
It's cheaper.
it's cheaper.
I think it was TV.
I got the Sunday to how about this? We'll lower it to, I said, 1 nights.
I'll let you leave it.
I'm like, let me tell you, you're only making it two, no, sorry, 105, they're making it $2 cheaper.
Yeah.
I'm like, think of something that we if you make it $40 less. Yeah. Then we get out. And they will know we can't do that. Well, fine. I said, you didn't raise it any, that's your mom. She's gonna be in the rehab center as of today, at the Miami Jewish Home. So she's gonna actually be closer. And then once she gets better, she can go back to her place at Marathon. I already told her over the phone, you do what they tell you. Like this. Thank God my sister was here the whole time. Imagine this happened when I was from. No, it happened when I was, oh, it did, when I was in Ocala. That's when she did it. And my sister was here when it happened. I told my sister, look at it, that you were here, you saw it happen, the 2 aides who were there, they saw it. I mean, nobody's fault. The problem is, when you were sitting around and. I gave her.
How are you?
Yeah, it was wrong by the. Just to let you know, my mom broke her kneecap. She's going to rehab the center at the Miami Jewish when I was gone, you know. No. It happened on Labor Day weekend, so she's been in Baptist Hospital for.
Not for you. I get these style magazines, I don't know why, I don't have subscriptions to them.
Yeah, I mean, you're.
That fish feed style.
So the former president of the. Passed away. And I'm at work.
Like Erica, imagine I'm getting a former today that one Fernandez Barquini at the senior center waiting for us, waiting for him to us. Shouldn't say us.
That's thought. Hey.
Yeah. Good, good, not bad.
Yes, I did.
Well, no, I reached out, I was calling you in the middle of the.
So Santa Rosa today, I was telling Erica, I'm so used to like, I always sometimes wondered like, Erica has like the big brother, you know, she knows, like, you got this, you got that, not in a bad way, in a good way. So I took it for granted. I forgot I had told the city clerk, Miami-Dade County, Juan Fernandez Barquin to go to the senior center. He's coming to the Rotary next week. And they call me. Oh, he was there. No, just let her assistant. But he's on the way. Are you coming? And I left the meeting here that I had for the car show with the police chief. I went over there and I was like, I told Erica, at least show up because it's kind of in the reins of your business. You know, you're a city clerk. You should go and show up. He was cool. He understood. Look, I dropped the ball. I just forgot.
But I got
Today I was.
between your wife
I
and.
forgot today that
Had what?
I told,
Eating them. or TV called me again. I bet you they're gonna over. I'll be going with that. Bet you a lot. Especially at night, they're gonna. I did it on Friday. I had 2 days of research. The one who said they'll never go to screen. And those screen people don't raise up their prices. And it's anything if it's no contract.
You get turned it off. Yeah, so really. Yeah, you don't have to pay, you don't have to pay the rental fees for the equipment. You have a box. You get more. Hey, how are you? You get unlimited,
Exactly. But the most funny thing is on Friday, I was watching it on my phone. Forgot that I had an Xbox. That you could hook it up to the Xbox, and when did I realize it? Saturday morning. So I did it.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest dork Friday. Because I was watching the YouTube TV on my phone and forgot that I had the Xbox.
You can use your iPad too.
I had that too. I did that too, but I knew about the iPad, but I forgot that I had the Xbox.
Whatever. I forgot about stuff.
But that shows you that's how often I play the Xbox. Before I buy a video game.
Remember when we bought it like 3 years ago?
No, I thought that was a long time ago, before I even,
Oh, for real?
I bought it like in 2015.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yes. And I bought it and play it, and once I beat it, I'm done. And then I'm done playing.
Oh yeah, Mikey, how's your dad? I saw the pictures. I'm sure he was happy.
Then when I saw my mom broke her knee back.
How? No, she fell.
But my sister was there. He's going to the rehab center today at the line of Jewish.
I think, what?
Those are nice people. Thank you. And I'm gonna say Augustine at end of January. I'm so excited for our wedding. It's a Springs family, but they decided to do the wedding and they Friday, and leave on the third.
I know.
I don't even know if it's indoor or outdoor, I didn't even ask.
It's all good. You can count on it.
We're looking at this.
I know that's
Never ending.
I am good. Remember this one?
Oh, that's what happened. Oh, shit.
Your favorite?
I have to fill this out again.
Going on.
What you got going on? What you got going on? You got so much going on. What is,
I have a million things.
what?
Has a girlfriend.
Wait. Erica, have you heard this?
Has a girlfriend.
He has a girlfriend.
No, I don't. George is such a liar.
She said it.
And you don't know that.
I know, I said, I'll tell you.
A liar.
Because he doesn't want to tell you, he said it might mess up his trips to another concert.
No, I wanna do, if they go in another tour, I wanna go see the Backstreet Boys.
So what do you call
What's up, baby?
No, no,
How was the meeting?
it?
Which meeting? The one that I left, the one I left.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
We're gonna do, I wanna do one like the week before. Just to kind of go on site, just to visualize it.
Probably the best thing, because it's hard to
Yeah. No,
see everything on the paper, you know.
it's gonna be good.
I believe her. I mean-
Pero there was no issue we talked about. Just talked about.
No? Okay.
The whole thing, and I don't know if he talked.
Yes, of course.
Oh, yeah, it's all things. No, I think my brother-in-law bartered, Mikey even knows. My brother-in-law bartered with them, and he does the fumigation, and he lets them do, with the big truck with big dust and brick. But-
How do you want me to do, Carrie?
You have, like,
Yeah, I guess that could be.
Put it on my-
That's what we want to put some trailer. Now, because. The only other place, like, and this would be like in the Leaf area, is the rec center. That parking lot, they take some other trailer. They expect like 15 or 20 cars. We gotta find a spot.
Yeah, no, I'll get Jack to talk to him, well, not Jack, my brother. Barber, he does everything and he let her use her truck.
I told him, that to Phil today. Phil, right?
If they want me,
I said, talk to George, they'll talk to you.
if they say that they wanna see something.
I don't know neither.
Yeah, I do. Well,
Yeah.
Through your.
You want me to go ahead? So we can do it. Let's go ahead and let me do it, just.
wow, we ever did something. Because there's. All those churches,
Yeah. And they,
and they're using the big land.
yeah, I know, they have a lot of land.
Oh, what's in here? Probably should put some- you know, unfortunately,
It was amazing.
Big fan. It's in
Really?
Also,
Well, I mean, recommended.
I like not a lot of.
Once I got there, I was like, was not.
Well, we have something.
Yes, but I went to,
I say, abundance of function.
Oh, it's not you, at the beginning, you yourself, and then I will introduce you.
So before they get that item, completely.
No, as soon as the item comes up, I don't even have to introduce you like, Mayor. And then I will. Explain.
all right,
Yeah. On the yellow. It's only item. But.
Appreciate it so much.
What are you doing? What are you,
Hola.
how you feeling?
Yes.
How you doing?
Hey, Mikey, how are you? Good, nice to see you.
What are you up to?
Same old, working. How about you?
Behaving.
That's good.
Yeah, but I gave up watching. Then I microwave was upstairs. And then my TV, you know what it is? I get to look at it. Well, what's a good angry. No, you know who I see them at something when it's all shit? One is on.
Oh,
Yeah, I really think so. I think they're gonna talk up the. I've heard different. From a lot of.
Thank you.
Dashing through the springs. I like that. Santa with 3/4 pants.
Even if they don't make it, there's a positive.
okay. Eric, are we ready? Do we have anyone waiting or anything to get online? Call the vote, please.
Mayor Mitchell,
Here.
Vice Mayor Fahet.
Here.
Councilman Santeen,
Here.
Councilwoman Bravo. Here. Councilman Vasquez.
Here.
There's a quorum present.
All right, thank you. Welcome to our local planning agency meeting for Monday, September 9th. And our first order of business is approval of the minutes of the August 12th LPA meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes of the August 12th LPA meeting.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Fahet,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you. We move on to a public hearing and I'll let, Roger, are you going to read it?
Perfect. All right. This is an ordinance of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, amending chapter 150 zoning code of the city's code of ordinances by amending section 150-002 definitions and section 150-013 residential plantings, fences, and walls to add and amend definitions and regulations relating to height, materials, setbacks, and maintenance requirements for yards, plantings, hedges, and fences, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. This is a public hearing. Madam
Okay.
Mayor.
Thank you, Roger. I'll open it up now for a public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Come on up, please.
I didn't look at the planning advisory, agenda, but looked at your 7 o'clock agenda, so they're both on the same. So we're here to voice our concerns on item 8C. We live in Miami Springs on Falcon Avenue. Specifically, we have concerns with
Excuse me, let me ask you to state your name and your address, please.
Elkis Romay, 720 Falcon Avenue.
Guillermo Romay, 720 Falcon Avenue.
Thank you.
Specifically, we have concerns with the 8-foot height restriction on the side and rear yards. Also, the targeted restriction just on hedges, not specifying if other trees, like what if we had arecas in our backyard, 12-foot arecas. Also, the requirement to maintain hedges according to National Arborist standards. What does that even mean? We currently maintain our hedges according to the current code, keeping them healthy and manicured on both our side and our neighbor's side. I want to let you guys know that I want to highlight the cost that we pay to maintain those hedges. We trim them twice a year, both on our side and our neighbors, like we mentioned, and it's about $1,000 annually. I want to just highlight what this could possibly cost other residents if this ordinance is imposed. I also question what kind of outreach was done with residents on this ordinance, and if we engage the community before implementing these new retroactive restrictions. I'd like to tell you how this impacts our family and our property. Our home is elevated. We walk 3 steps up to the home. The backyard and patio is also elevated and the pool is elevated. So even with a 6-foot fence, I could see my neighbors probably from here up, pretty much when I'm sunbathing. We went ahead and we planted clusias in our backyard, and because we like the look of a clusia instead of an areca or other type of foliage. Pretty much this hedge provides for us privacy for us and also for our neighbors. It provides security, offering us protections from individuals that are either in the alleyway. We've had occurrences where people in the alleyway, they go through bulk trash, they get on the back of the bed of their car, of their truck, and they look into our property. We've seen that happen before. And also quality of life. It offers reduction of noise, either from our property when we have get-togethers or others. Also, offers greenery to enjoy instead of looking at my neighbors that have built different types of structures or additions. And if at some point somebody were to build a 2-story next to me, I would rather look at foliage instead of looking at a structure. I urge you to vote no on this item and gather more input from residents to make a more informed decision that reflects the community's needs.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You want to say a few words?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, we've been living in the Springs since about 2002. So we've been here about 22 years of that property. And, we're very mindful of our neighbors. And what we do in our home, I think is our responsibility too, so anything that we do it on both sides. And I'm making always sure that our neighbors are comfortable and our neighbors actually enjoy the privacy of our hedges from them, because they could actually enjoy their backyard with their kids and their private, their safe haven where they could be out there doing their things in their yard. And I know we have in Springs unique properties where there's some properties that are right on top of each other. And so it's a little challenging sometimes on having privacy in your backyard. But I think that, the way that we've maintained and the way that our neighbors feel about it, we've never had any issues. Also, there's been a lot of construction around our home. People have added things to their houses, so it's more coming closer to us. And there's been a lot of construction trucks coming through there and people that we don't even know that are coming in our neighborhood. And we haven't felt it because of our privacy of our hedges. So, it's for us, it's the main thing, especially with kids that we have, and for security. I've had a lot of people come to those neighbors, to our backyards, that we don't know what they're doing back there. And I don't feel comfortable with it. We have an issue where a lot of trucks are going through the alleys, picking up metals and trash, stuff like that, guys that we don't know. And I've had issues where people looking in or trying to see what we have, and I don't like that as a homeowner. So this could be an issue for us. Also, we spend a lot of money throughout the year doing that. And by putting that ordinance, you're going to have a lot of people that don't know what this is going on. They're going to have a lot of expenses added to them. Just a couple homes. There's hundreds of houses in the Springs that have issues with hedges. That's going to be thousands of dollars that's going to cost the community, and coming up to code with a lot of these things, not just in the front, but also in the back. My biggest issue is my backyard and my rear from me and my neighbors in my backyard. Because I think that's where most people have their privacy on weekends and family get-togethers and stuff like that. So just want to speak on that.
Thank you so much. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak at the public hearing? Is there anyone online, Erica? No? All right. I'm closing the public hearing. Okay, so we'll proceed with the ordinance. Roger, can you explain during the LPA process what this is for? Because I know it's later on our agenda. So.
Absolutely. Right now, the council is serving in an advisory role, specifically as a local planning agency for the city. Your role as local planning agency members is to make a recommendation to the council, also known as this very council here. So this item, once a motion is made to recommend it with approval or with conditions or or to reject it, will go on to second reading at the main council meeting.
Thank you. I want to state some things about the hedges, and then of course everyone we can discuss. One of the reasons, and I appreciate your comments, they're totally valid comments. One of the reasons that, as you know, my reason for updating the hedge has to do with visibility and safety. For that triangle of safety, I don't care how much it costs, how much, a life is, there's no value. I mean, we can't assess the value to a life. So any inconvenience or anything. That has to be resolved. And the more in hedges, realistically, no matter how nicely they're planted, they get bigger, they grow bigger, and they expand. And I know a lot of residents in Miami Springs, like the ones that spoke today, and I want to thank you very much for being here, are very good about maintaining their hedges, or, very responsible about their yards and looks and all. When we were revising this hedge ordinance, we started looking at an addition. Anytime we are revising something or updating something for a certain purpose, it's an opportunity to look at a broader scope, right? And incorporate, like we did with the trees and all, incorporate other issues that probably need tidying up or clarifying. One of the things that I know I've gotten several complaints throughout the years is of residents whose neighbors have planted a hedge between their houses. The hedges are very large, extend 10, 12, 15 feet. And they're worried about the root system because the houses, the setbacks are very low. So if you've got a hedge that's 12 feet high and it's a real sturdy material, there is a possibility that the root system, and in fact, we have one resident who brought in photos of the root system from the neighbor's hedge that is about, I don't know, over 8 feet, certainly. They're keeping it tidy. They're keeping it, but they're not keeping it at a lower rate. As we know, roots, for most plants tend to expand relative to the height to keep that stability so that they're not turned over. So that is one of the reasons. The other reason is that realistically, even though we're required, every resident is required to maintain the hedge that belongs to them. When the hedges get so large, you can't maintain it anymore unless you invest a substantial amount to keep it. And while we have residents that do that, and we're very appreciative of that, and that's what they're supposed to do, a lot of residents, can't get up there to cut them, to trim them anymore. It's just too big a deal. Yes, it's true that if your neighbor's hedge, the hedge that they planted, is protruding into your yard, you can cut it. But you have to, at your cost. That's your cost because your neighbor is not, is allowing it to protrude too much. And part of that is when the hedges get so big. The residents that just spoke make a really good point about areca palms. And those can grow high. And Sylvia, I'm not sure if that's addressed, if that considered, but those are also root systems. They expand. So the reason for this ordinance is, as we're updating the ordinance on hedges and fences and visibility, making sure that pedestrian safety and motor vehicle safety and jogging safety, bicycle safety is paramount in our community. We're a community that prides ourselves on being a walkable, bike rideable community. The opportunity to address these other issues that keep cropping up came up. So that's the reason for it. I feel very strongly that, and perhaps, I feel very strongly that in between houses, the hedges have to be maintained a certain height. I mean, it's just impossible to get in there and trim them. And if the root system does start to go in one direction into the neighbor that planted it, you can be sure it's going into the other direction of the neighbor that, is an adjacent house. Perhaps in backyards, we can allow a little more, if it's not between the setback between the two houses, we can allow a little more height. But again, keep in mind that the higher a hedge, an 8-foot hedge is pretty easy to maintain. Anyone can pretty much get up on a ladder and trim it down. When we start getting to excesses beyond that, a 10-foot hedge, it's doubtful that my A-frame ladder that I could get on it and reach up there to trim it. So the cost, the maintenance cost of something that's unsightly, that's not well kept, is prohibitive because the hedges have just gotten too big.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So when it comes to the backyard, I can tell you because I've had experiences. I understand your concern with privacy, especially with people having now cameras in the corners of their houses, in the backyards, which, when you're outside, you're not supposed to expect any sort of privacy. But in my backyard, there's certain things that I can do to create the privacy. I have the clusias, I have the podocarpuses. I measured my podocarpus over the weekend because I wanted to see, I could only see my neighbors, not even the edge of her roof. I measured them. They were about slightly over 8 feet. It's a good height, but in cases where your house is elevated in the back, that I would think we should treat as a case by case basis, maybe, so that they could go ahead and take advantage of if they have any privacy issues. But that's really my main concern because I personally have an issue. I have neighbors by me with, I would say they're past 12, 13 feet, and now they're just bending over. Now, do I care? And I'll cut them, yeah, but I think it's just bad. It becomes hard. It becomes hard to maintain those types of hedges. But in your case, you're willing to invest the money. In my case, I make my husband cut it because we're just crazy like that. We'll just do it. We like the hedges, but I do think that maybe we should allow a little bit of flexibility in the backyard. Maybe a case by case where if they're elevated a foot, allow a foot more. If they're elevated two, allow two. I don't know if that would help your situation. 8 feet is a decent height. How high, do you know how high your hedges are now?
Odd that you're gonna have someone go out there with a pole and just.
No, no one's gonna go out there. No one's. Oh, yeah.
Yes,
if you wanna
sir.
come-
Mayor.
come
Yes,
to the
sir.
microphone,
Okay,
please.
let's just, because we had the
You
public, the public hearing's over, so you can
Wait.
talk later, but the public hearing's over.
And,
Yes, sir.
and Mayor,
Yes,
I-
we have to move on.
to move on, gonna have to adjourn this, so we can start the budget, well, the
Yes,
public
because we
hearing.
have to start the budget meeting on time at 7. So we will continue to discuss this
Okay.
at, because it's on the agenda. This is just the LPA where it's kind of to our attention. Roger, is there something else that we should do now other than, can we just postpone this discussion then to, do we have to approve the recommendation and then rehear it at the,
You can move this ordinance without a recommendation.
okay, so we can move this to be continued at the 7 o'clock on the regular agenda, which is already there.
You would be approving it without recommendations.
Okay, is that, I think,
Well,
unless there's-
I wouldn't want to approve it without recommendations.
Right.
We'll run it off to the next meeting.
Right.
I mean, as you said, Mayor.
We have to
it's
do
not
it.
the
I mean,
meeting.
if it's like that, I don't want to approve it without recommendation.
The ordinance does have to be moved forward onto the main council meeting. And then at the main council meeting, you could make amendments of whatever sort that you'd like to make.
okay,
Okay.
so let's do this. Is there a motion to approval without recommendation?
The ordinance.
Without recommendation,
in
it's
order
just that we'll
to
discuss it at the
set
next meeting.
Council meeting.
The ordinance would move on to the council meeting for second reading, and at second reading, the council could could make further amendments to the ordinance.
Okay.
This
Motion.
is just
to-
a recommendation
Okay.
to the council, which is to yourselves.
Motion to approve the recommendation of the council.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? I do want to say that with the implementation date, I have something that I'll discuss later on, since we don't have time now, as far as to when the implementation date should be, or in my opinion, should be. All right, with that, call the vote. Call the
Vice
vote,
Mayor
please.
Cahet,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
No.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
all right, thank you. Okay, is there any other business under this LPA that we need to address? Okay, with that, we'll adjourn this meeting and we will start the regular council meeting at 7, promptly at 7 PM.
Duplication.
When you sign on the back, yes. Sure.
What?
But this is about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have a
No
question.
problem.
And look, actually, I had an event that we did in relation to the bank. I think it's, I think it's.
Sure. Well, good. How you doing, man?
Michigan 21.
I tried it. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we are.
That's good, very. I don't want to.
That was the first. But I was there Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where is,
Is that Councilwoman Bravo? I think it's better to do that. We need to go through.
I mean, look at this.
Okay, before we get started, if there's anyone, and we're going to start in just about 30 seconds, if there's anyone that wishes to speak either during public forum or during an agenda item, please sign up at the podium. There's places there. There's 2 clipboards there, and please sign up, and then I'll call you, but we need to do that before the meeting gets started. Okay. Okay, while we do that, it's 7 o'clock. So are we waiting for anyone, Erica?
No. Mayor.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Mitchell,
Here.
Vice Mayor Fahet.
Here.
Councilman Santeen,
Here.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Here.
Councilman Vasquez.
Here.
There is a quorum present.
Thank you. Please stand if you're able for the invocation by Councilman Santeen.
Lord, thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities to this council and to the city. Today, I pray for our mayor and all levels of city officials in Miami Springs, in particular this council assembled here today. I'm asking that you would graciously grant us the wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, the sense of welfare and true needs of our people, and the keen thirst for justice and rightness. I ask all this in your name, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're glad you're joining us. For those of you that are here present in the chambers, and for those of you that are joining us virtually for our September 9th regular council meeting. And we'll get started with awards and presentations. And our first award is by Chief Deal, a unit citation award.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
evening.
Following officers, please step forward to the, up here in front of me, please. Officer Lazaro Rodriguez. Officer Lazaro D. Rodriguez, excuse me. Officer Kyle Collins, Officer Gustavo Miranda, and Officer Stephen Torres.
Come on up. I'm sorry, I skipped your name by accident. Because I was looking at Lauren's and I was thinking. Lauren's is not correct. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. This unit citation award was brought to us by Sergeant Albert Vargas as well as Sergeant Ronnie Gonzalez. They formally recommended the dedicated officers of the afternoon shift for this prestigious unit citation award for their exceptional performance during the month of July 2024. On July 3rd, 2024, at approximately 5:15 p.m., officers responded to a report of a suspicious individual observed jumping the fence into the backyard of a residence on the 500 block of South Drive. The subject entered and rummaged through the homeowner's vehicle, which was parked inside the enclosed gate backyard. Acting with remarkable vigilance and coordination, a perimeter was established and the suspect was successfully located and apprehended in the rear of the residence. The suspect was charged with burglary to an unoccupied dwelling and burglary to an unoccupied conveyance. Further demonstrating their dedication and exemplary police work, a second subject believed to be involved in the same incident was apprehended a few blocks away. The second subject was found in possession of a .40 caliber Glock firearm with an extended magazine in his waistband, highlighting the potential danger posed to the community. This subject was arrested for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and altering the ID of the firearm. Serial number had been basically grinded off. The suspect was also wanted in Georgia for a robbery and kidnapping. The swift and decisive actions of the officers involved not only led to the safe detention of both suspects, but also prevented any potential harm from the firearm. On July 23rd, 2024, at approximately 6:30 p.m., units were dispatched to the Days Inn Hotel in reference to a female in distress. Upon arrival, officers swiftly and thoroughly checked the room, finding it vacant. Shortly after, the family of the victim arrived and presented video sent to the victim's son, revealing that she had been battered and was being held against her will. The footage showed the victim being confined in a closet on 2 separate occasions by the suspect, who refused to let her leave. Demonstrating exceptional teamwork and quick thinking, the officers were able to ping the victim's phone with the invaluable assistance of our Detective Bureau, Miami-Dade Aviation, and Broward Sheriff's Office. A felony stop was successfully conducted and the suspect was taken into custody without further incident. As a result of their decisive and professional actions, the victim and her 13-year-old son were safely returned to their family. The suspect now faces charges of strong-arm robbery, false imprisonment, and domestic battery. From July 15th to July 20th, the afternoon shift played a pivotal role in a statewide safety initiative, Operation Southern Slowdown, aimed at reducing speeding and promoting safe driving practices. Their efforts were instrumental, with the afternoon shift writing 125 out of the department's 238 citations during the initiative, underscoring their leadership and commitment to the cause. Throughout July, the afternoon shift has demonstrated outstanding commitment to public safety and law enforcement excellence, as evidenced by their impressive statistical achievements and proactive participation in statewide initiatives. Their collective efforts resulted in the following significant outcomes: 25 arrests, resulting in 18 felonies, 6 misdemeanors, 9 active warrants, and 3 traffic-related charges, with over 200 traffic citations issued as well. In addition, we wouldn't be a community-oriented police department without warning and discretion. There were more than 60 warnings issued to traffic violators during the month of July. The professionalism, teamwork, and unwavering commitment to the public safety exhibited by the officers during the month of July are truly commendable. Their actions reflect the highest standards of our department and serve as a testament to their dedication to duty. Sergeant Vargas, Sergeant Gonzalez, as well as I and my command staff, proud to recognize Officer Justin Robbins, Officer Lazaro M. Rodriguez, Officer Adonis Lawrence, who's not present tonight, Officer Stephen Torres, Officer Gustavo Miranda, Officer Lazaro D. Rodriguez, and Officer Kyle Collins for their outstanding service, and commend them for their exemplary performance in the line of duty. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, and wait, we'd like to take one with the council, and I think I speak on behalf of all the council, although of course any of them can speak in. Thank you so much. Your presence, your constantly being on alert and constantly taking the actions needed to protect our community, our residents, our visitors, our quality of life is greatly appreciated, and we can never thank you enough. I know that everything that the chief described today is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, but this is a 24/7 commitment from you and your families and your loved ones to serve and protect our community, and we're very, very grateful. Thank you. In 1 second, we'd like to take a photo with all of us. Council, if we'll stay, we'll do the art of the month. Another one with all the officers that are here, and we'll make room for everyone that's here to. Oh, it's here for their. Thank you again. Very grateful. And thank you, Chief, for bringing this information to our attention. So much of what our police department does is behind the scenes and we're not aware of it, but the reality is that's what makes our community so special.
Actually, I'll take it.
While we're here, I want to, we'll do the presentation for the Yard of the Month Award for September of 2024. Is the family that resides at 520 Quail Avenue. Are you with us? Hello, hi, come in. Ms. Gibson, come on forward, please. You have been selected, your yard has been selected as our Yard of the Month by our Parks Board, and it is located as 520 Quail Avenue. So I want to let the community, encourage the community during this month, when you have a chance, when you're out, drive by and appreciate the beautiful yard that Ms. Gibson has provided for our community, but also we're very grateful for your efforts to beautify our city and to promote other neighbors, encourage other neighbors to do the same. So thank you. Do you want to say a few words about your yard? Watch yourself.
Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Which is this open? Oh, agenda.
For hedges, yeah.
Okay, we move on to open forum. Has everyone who wanted to speak at open forum signed up? I know we were kind of rushed to start in time.
There's no one on open forum.
There's no
just
one
for
listed?
agenda items.
Okay, so we have people on the agenda items.
For
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to approval of the council minutes for August 5th, the budget workshop and the regular meeting on August
Through the
26th.
chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve 8A, I'm sorry, 6A. Should put on my glasses, right? 6A and B, thank you. Okay.
I'll
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Fahet,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen.
Yes.
Councilwoman Bravo.
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. We move on to, well, we don't have any reports from boards and commissions, but Eric, I wanted to ask you, I know we've asked to have yearly reports from all of our advisory boards and we haven't had any in a while.
Yeah, they should be coming up towards the end of the month. October, November is usually.
Okay, all right, sounds good. All right, so we move on to a public hearing. The first public hearing is on item 8A. And I'm not sure if the city manager or Roger is speaking on that.
No, I'm going to speak on it, but as far as reading the resolution,
Exactly. Mayor, before I read the resolution on the millage, would you like to take the millage and the budget together? Same public, have the public hearing on both?
On item 8A and B?
Correct.
Yeah, well, let me just see if I have someone signed up to speak on that. Okay. Okay, yes, that's fine. So you're going to read both of them?
Yes.
And then we'll open up the public hearing for items 8A and B.
A resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, adopting the proposed millage rate for fiscal year 2024-2025 in the amount of 6.8600 mils, which is 7.65% higher than the rollback rate of 6.3723 mils to balance the general fund for fiscal year 2024-2025 and providing for an effective date. Item 8B is a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, adopting a tentative budget for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025, confirming the date of second public hearing and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, and JC, I know you want to speak, but I want to clarify something before that because there are certain things that we have to write the agenda a certain way. So even though it states the our proposed millage rate, it includes, what the rollback rate was. But in reality, the millage rate that has been adopted is a reduction from last year. And we're very, very happy and excited that our city manager and our city staff have been able to, and our finance director have been able to provide this proposal.
correct, Mayor, and thank you. After our budget workshop a few weeks ago, the finance director, Chris, and myself, we continued working on tweaking the budget, trying to make it as lean as possible. We received some lucky bounces through these last couple of weeks, mainly on the insurance side. Our property insurance, as you can see in the memo included in the agenda, our property and liability insurance, well, we didn't have the renewal at the time of the workshop, so we had a budgeted amount, and it came in under that by $112,000. And then we made some other our communication services revenue, we were off by 11,000 to the good. And then we also added, from the last meeting, we added the $30,000 back in for the referees for the soccer and baseball. That in total allowed us to reduce the millage rate from 6.91, which is what it currently is, down to 6.86. And again, we will always be committed to reducing it when responsible and when it's called for. And I just want to thank Chris. As a manager, I work really closely with the finance director, very closely with the finance director. And I tell him what I want and he goes and he gets it done. And he'll tell me if it can't be done. He goes, hey, I can't do it. But we have a great finance director in Chris, and I just want to thank him for everything. Because I know I've driven him nuts in the last couple of weeks, last couple of months. I've been driving him crazy. So I just want to say thanks.
Okay, does anyone on the council have anything they'd like to say?
Good, Chair.
Yes, sir.
I think it's also important that you clarify to the public that no services, considering the hard work you guys had to get this budget balanced and even give us a little break, I guess you could call it. But the point is that it was hard to get to this point. So without cutting any services,
Yes,
that's crucial.
correct.
Because that's always the biggest concern. I think our public doesn't want it, doesn't care as long as you don't touch their services. So, just
as-
let them know.
As a matter of fact, I think on the contrary, I think what the residents will see is a better service, including the passport service that we're going to be offering here at City Hall. Once it gets up and running, that's going to be, it's nice service for residents because I know renewing a passport is, because I've done it, to go to Miami Beach or wherever it was that I had to go to. It's going to be nice to be able to offer it here in Miami Springs by appointment only, but other than that, you're not going to see any reduction in any services. So yeah, it's a good year.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's been tough the last couple of years and with some increased expenses that we weren't expecting to vote to approve not only a balanced budget, which is what we're required to do, but without hurting our services and lowering the millage some, and which is always a good step for our residents. And so I'm very pleased, but I want to congratulate the staff for working hard at this, particularly Chris. I know as finance director, there's only so much you could do with the numbers, right? And at the end of the day, they have to balance, and the services and everything else that we have to offer also have to be balanced. So I'm very pleased with the job that you all have done.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
So we budgeted the way that we should. We got rid of non-essential items that we were using as expenses, right? So that helped. And we also eliminated non-actualized budgeted items that we did year after year that we never really executed. So that helped tremendously get to where we are. So thank you for cleaning up the budget so that we have a fresh start next year and with actualized numbers where we can start fresh.
And we'll continue building upon what we started now.
Yeah.
I will say every year is different. I take budgeting year by year. This was a good year. A lot relies upon, the housing market, property values. Who knows what insurance costs will do next year? We were lucky this year. I'd like to, and whenever I can, pass it on to the residents, the savings. So yeah, it was a good year. I'm happy about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, I would agree that it was a good year, but there were also some things some curveballs that we had to deal with. And again, I think that staff should be commended because you guys really squeezed all the juice out of that fruit in order to get us budget wise to where we could lower the millage rate, because times are tough for people, and folks like to say that government is not good at reducing spending. So it was great to see. Obviously, like you said, every year has its own challenges, but there were challenges this year as well, and you made it work, and you got the budget down to the point where you could pass along again some savings in terms of the millage rate for taxes for residents. So that's to be commended. So thank you.
And I just want to say, JC and Chris, both of you came on board last year. So last year when we had our budget time, we were faced with unprecedented inflation. The nation was, as everyone remembers, for the past 2 or 3 years, the inflation just keeps growing, and last year was extraordinary. We made a pledge, decided after much discussion that we would not raise the taxes, which was a very difficult decision because almost every other municipality in Miami-Dade County last year raised their taxes and raised them significantly to keep up with inflation. After long discussions, we decided to keep them the same. But in fact, our trajectory in Miami Springs for the past 10 years at least has been to continually every single year lower our budget, our millage rate. And with the exception of last year where we kept it the same, what I think is, what I greatly appreciate about this is that we are back on that trajectory of continually every single year figuring out how to bring savings to our residents and at the same time improve the services. You know, like I always say, Miami Springs has never looked better. It's never had more services, more opportunities. We live in a great city, and that is a huge responsibility that we throw on our city manager, our finance director, every single one of our department directors and their staff. And when this budget season, when the budget workshop started, I think we all fully accepted. We had allowed the millage cap at a certain rate just so that you could work on it, that we could work on it. But I think when we started the budget workshops, we all fully expected to spend long hours and have several workshops trying to whittle away to something that ideally would be a cost savings. JC, our new city manager, said I do it a little differently. And every city manager, as I said at the beginning of the first budget workshop, every city manager has a different way that they tackle the budget. And he said, I do it a little differently. But what happened is you worked with the department directors, staff, and with Chris very, very closely, of course, and presented to us at the budget workshop a budget that we were very impressed by. So for that, an extraordinary amount of work that went behind the scenes to prepare that for us. And the biggest item is that from last year, again, in light of, you know, very much inflation, the same inflation, like I tell residents, the same inflation that you're feeling in your pocketbook when you go to the grocery store and when you buy gas and, you know, tax everything, the city is experiencing it too. You know, we have the same expenses. And this is exceptional, the work that you've done to present this to us and to provide a tax savings for our residents, to continue a reduction on our millage rate, which is the trajectory that we've been on in the past and certainly want to continue and hopefully will continue into the future. So with that, I know I've spoken a lot and we all have, but I think it merits that because this was a very successful budget process for all of us and for certainly for our residents. So with that, thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I'll open it up now for the public hearing. If anyone wants to speak at this, even if you haven't signed up for this, and I don't have anyone signed up. Oh, well, for the agenda items we do. Is there anyone that wants to speak public hearing? I'm opening it up if there's anyone. Okay, and anyone online, Erica?
No, Mayor, there's nobody.
Okay, yes, sir.
Mhm.
This is just for the millage, yes. The public hearing on the millage, the budget. Okay, we'll close the public hearing
Mm.
and we'll move on to the next item, which is item
Wait,
8.
Mayor,
Mayor.
we need to actual motion and approve.
Oh,
both of
excuse
those.
me.
Motion to approve
Yes.
8A and B.
So important.
It would have to
Second
be,
that,
I'm
just
sorry.
8A.
Yes, for 8A.
Separately?
Separately.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a
to
motion
approve
for 8A?
8A.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Yes, sir,
Before
Roger.
we vote on this, if we could just have Chris read into the record the proposed millage rate and the rollback rate to comply with state requirements.
The millage rate, good evening, Mayor and Council. The millage rate before you this evening is 6.8600 mils for the fiscal year 24-25, which is 7.65% higher than the rollback rate of 6.3723 mils.
Okay, all right, I have a first and a second on it.
Yes.
Is any discussion? A vote?
Vice Mayor Fahet,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you. 8B, do I have a
To
motion?
approve 8B.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Fahet,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
all right, thank you. We move on to 8C. And Roger, I'll ask you to read that ordinance again.
An ordinance of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, amending chapter 150 zoning code of the city's code of ordinances by amending section 150-002 definitions, and section 150.013 residential plantings, fences, and walls to add and amend definitions and regulations relating to height, materials, setbacks, and maintenance requirements for yards, plantings, hedges, and fences, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open it up. We have several people that want to speak on this, and we'll open it up for the people that are listed. Plus, it's a public hearing, so if there's anyone else who didn't have a chance to, I'll let you come up and speak after these are finished. I do ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. So please be considerate that we have other people that want to speak too, and we'll get started with opening the public hearing. And we'll get started with Belkis Ramey. And please state your name and address when you speak.
Guillermo Romay. I live at 720 Falcon Avenue. My wife, Belkis Romay, 720 Falcon Avenue. We spoke earlier before we started this meeting, and it was about the ordinance, about the height restrictions on the hedges of the homes. We understand your concerns for the triangle through the front yard because of residents and sidewalks and the safety, and we want safety for all neighbors. You know what I mean? We've been living in this neighborhood over 22 years. And, it's very important we walk the neighborhood, we ride bicycle, we run, we have kids that have grown up here. So safety is very important. Our biggest issue is with our backyards and in the side of our backyards for our neighbors. We have clusias, hedges in the backyard. And like we spoke before, it's a lot to do with our privacy and for security. We just heard how our officers were commended for chasing a criminal that jumped over a fence into somebody's yard. With my clusias, the way they are now, nobody's jumping into my backyard, which gives me safety for me and my children. Also, we spoke about the safety through the alleyways, people driving through the alleyways and peeking over our yards. People are collecting metal and garbage through our alleys, and that's an issue. You spoke earlier about if it's a nuisance into other people's yards. We have a wooden fence around our whole backyard. So my trees will not be interfering into other people's yards. We keep them neat. Our neighbors are in agreements with our hedges because it also gives them their privacy for their own yards. We've been having a lot of construction around our neighborhood and around our home, and it keeps us privacy from the construction work and also the homes that have been added closer to the property line of the alleys. And it's true. It's if we restrict on our hedges in the back, what goes on if I wanted to plant 20 trees in my backyard, if I wanted to plant 20 clusias and let them grow 30, 40 arecas, 30, 40 feet. That's something that also is going to be, I think there's a lot of residents that don't know this is happening. And when they find out, this is going to be a very big cost to a lot of residents in Miami Springs. Because of the ordinance, you're going to want them to cut down trees. These trees are expensive to cut down. And this is something that you're not considering. And a lot of people do not know. I don't think this information has gone out to the masses. A lot of people do not know about this going on. We found out this weekend over a blog that somebody writes in Springs. If not, we would not have known. Maybe you put it out there, but it's not getting to most of the residents. So this is a concern for us. And we would like you to rethink this ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to speak also? Okay. All right. Vanessa Solis.
Vanessa Solis on
Can you
870.
lower the microphone?
Vanessa Solis, 870 Clover Avenue. Forgive my ignorance, this is the first time I'm speaking at a public hearing, so I don't know if it's somewhere where I can ask questions and kind of get a response.
Can't ask questions. We are listening.
Okay.
Okay, so it's, and I should explain that, we are listening to you. We may decide to ask questions, but, we're,
I'm
yes,
okay.
you're just speaking and we're listening.
So I shared some of the concerns that the people on Falcon also mentioned. I only found out about this weekend over a blog. I didn't know that it had been read, a first time. I would have been here the first time that it was being read, so I can be heard. I'm very concerned about the privacy. I live on the corner of Plover and Lenape. We all know that Lenape is a very busy street. I've been there for 10 years. Everybody on the block, it's obviously a very tight-knit community. Everybody knows each other. I've never had any complaints about my hedges. I keep them trimmed. I keep them, where they're supposed to be at. No one's ever said, hey, it's blocking my view. Today, before I came over here, I kind of looked at the situation and, the stop sign, it aligns with the hedges. And then the white line that you're supposed to stop on after, that appears after the stop sign, that's actually past the hedges. So, when a car is stopping, they're still going up to that point. They're passing the hedges and they're looking. So the hedges isn't really what's, I guess, blocking the roadway, if that's the safety concern, because the stop sign's there and the white line is there and they're in line and past the hedges. So I don't think that it's the hedges that's blocking it. I personally do not have a driveway. I don't have hedges that block that driveway. There's no concern that, my car is going to go over the sidewalk and hit someone that's going to, be walking by or anything like that. So if this is something that's going to be the same thing with my backyard, the alleyway, the 6-foot fence, everything's there for privacy reasons and everything. If the council is going to continue to, try to enforce this, I ask that it maybe be enforced in other ways, maybe the thickness, right? Maybe the thickness of the hedges, we can look at that instead of the height. And I know some people have these like huge, beautiful hedges with the big flat leaves. They're very thick. I can see where that might be a problem because I see that would be something that can go over the stop sign or over the white line. So I would ask the council to do it in a different way instead of the height, maybe the thickness of the hedges, or consider something else that we can do. Because again, 10 years, no complaints on my side. I really don't see a useful purpose for the hedge restriction, at least on my corner block, with the fact that I don't have a driveway and that the stop sign is already there. So if they are going to enforce it, maybe they can make an exception for corner lots that don't have driveways, something along those lines. Because if it is going to affect me, I do want it to serve a useful purpose where I can say, well, this is definitely for, safety or et cetera.
Thank you so much. Okay, next we have, just read this. Lushaya Kapen. Welcome.
Usai Kappen, 50 Truxton Drive. Dear Mayor, council members, staff, and residents. I've been a resident here in Miami Springs for almost 3 years. And when we first moved to the house that my parents bought, it was an open lot. People were crossing through our property and everything. Together, we planted, I don't know, at least 100 individual clusia plants throughout that were maybe less than a foot tall. Now they're around 8 feet tall and they add value. All our neighbors have said, oh, it's very beautiful. Not once have our neighbors complained about a safety issue or any concern like that. And even staff from City of Miami Springs have asked me, oh, how have you grown your clusias? How have you kept them so well maintained? And that's something that we want to continue to do for the City of Miami Springs. The City of Miami Springs is known as a tree city, right? But in the recent years, the city has cut more trees. We want to keep that green. We don't want the city to become kind of a concrete jungle, just concrete fences and no greenery around. When it comes to safety, I walk my dog all around Miami Springs. Not once has there been an issue with tall shrubs or anything like that, where a car was exiting too fast with the potential or danger of hitting me or my dog. But what I have seen, as some of our fellow residents have said already, the uptick of suspicious vehicles and individuals going through our alleyways. Take your regular truck with a standard 8-foot fence. All it needs, somebody needs to stand on the flatbed. They can look right over 8 feet, right? So you have that security issue. About 2 weeks ago, one of my neighbors, they had somebody trespass, and while their daughter was showering, somebody went up to the window while one of my neighbor's daughters was showering, right? They'd have no plants in the back. All they have is a wire fence that somebody can easily jump, which is a lot harder when it comes with shrubberies, right? So I understand that there's some concern with that. But then lastly, what I also want to mention with that is, I get it, right? We want to keep it nice and neat. I think there's an opportunity to get all residents involved. It's kind of odd. It's also my first time hearing about this ordinance, yet it's a second reading. I think we can improve that. get the citizens, the residents involved and find a better way to make sure we keep the city green, but also safe at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we have one more person. Is this Charlie Leonard?
He's talking about.
Thank you, Vanessa, for lowering the mic. Appreciate it. Charlie Leonard, 190 Westwood Drive. Actually, I'm a little bit shocked because the last time this issue of the hedges came up, these chambers were packed with people. So that tells me that a lot of residents aren't even aware that this is happening. So what I would say is table the item, put it out there so people understand that this is happening. That way you really have input from the community. The manager mentioned values, home values. Landscaping adds tremendous value to a home, to a city, to a community. The gentleman spoke about concrete jungle. It's nice to have greenery all over the place. It makes a house look nice. It makes a neighborhood look nice. Look at other neighborhoods, Weston, Coral Gables, Miami Beach, Palm Beach. All those cities, all those small communities, they have something in common, and that is beautiful landscaping. What you need to do is make sure that people maintain them. I have hedges in my house, and they're at least 8 feet tall, but I maintain my side and I maintain the neighbor's side because I want it to look nice. But I think that the city should, or you should consider tabling this item and have a special meeting so the residents can come out and speak, and then you vote whatever you think is right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak before I close the public hearing? No, this just,
Hold on.
You don't.
you reach out to any of us, any of the council members or the city after the meeting, or the city manager, assistant city manager, our city clerk. Okay, and I want to say everything that we are discussing I'm closing the public hearing. Everything that we discuss that comes before the city is on our agenda. I encourage, as you know, I'm constantly encouraging residents to be engaged, to keep up, to follow us on, if you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, our web, what do you call it? Our webpage. If you're signed up for our newsletter, every single Friday, you'll get a newsletter in your mailbox, in your electronic mailbox, and it will contain the information for the week, including the agenda items, when we're having a meeting, the agenda items for Monday's meeting. So like everything else, we have hearings. This is the process. You need to be involved to know what's going on. One thing I will say with the hedges is when we discussed during the first reading was that, and our city manager had mentioned about a public information period where once we vote on whatever we vote on, there would be it wouldn't be instantaneous that residents have to comply, that there would be public information, public awareness on what's required and a grace period of, several months to comply. Okay, with that, I want to make one more comment that the reason I had brought up the need for the hedge ordinance is very real situation where I was hit by a car riding my bike around the block from my house on a Sunday morning. Nobody else out there, no traffic. My neighbor was pulling out of his driveway. Thankfully, he was going very slow because he has a hedge next to his driveway. He couldn't see me. It was a very tall hedge. He couldn't see me. I couldn't see him. And the reality is it's a moving vehicle violation. If he had killed me, be responsible. But you know what? It doesn't matter who's the truth is when we can see each other, visibility, if you're at a stop sign or a green light, you have a green light and you can see that another car is running the red light, you'll take actions to stop it because you saw that coming, right? And what matters is that near miss was avoided. But when we limit the ability for visibility, then that's when accidents can happen. Recently, and I had asked at that time, I was injured. I was hit by the car as he backed out, knocked into the swale. I had stitches on my arm, big bruised and everything, but by the grace and lost my bike was very mangled. by the grace of God, it could have been much worse. My neighbor the very next day tore out his hedge. And I told him, it doesn't have to be torn out. Just lower it so that when I'm anyone passing on the sidewalk, I can see the car moving or you can see me. And one of us, that visibility. He was so traumatized by the incident. He goes, no, I don't even want the hedge. But if I had been pushing, I was riding a bike. I'm pretty agile. It hit me because it was coming out. It hit my front wheel of my bike and knocked me out into the swale. If I had been pushing a stroller, the stroller would have been hit. If I had been riding my bike and my grandchildren had been in front of me, like many residents do, that the kids run in front of you in their little tricycle or bike, they would have been hit. And I brought it to the attention of the council then, saying we have an ordinance. We already have this in place to keep your hedges low and fences low so that there's that visibility. The problem was it wasn't clear. There was some lack of clarity there as to, what constituted visibility. So that's what we're working on here, is that ordinance is already there. It's clarifying it so it's easier for our code enforcement officers to enforce it when they get a call. And this became extremely important recently because a resident reached out to me a few months ago and he was jogging around his house and he says he just, by the grace of God, didn't get hit by his neighbor who was pulling out of his driveway. And he says the hedge was very tall. He couldn't see the exact same thing. He couldn't see the neighbor. The neighbor could, the driver couldn't see him. So the ordinance is there. He was asking, why aren't we enforcing it? And we are trying to enforce it, but this provides the ability, the clarification as to exactly the distances that we're talking about. It's not the code enforcement going, that doesn't look so good. We're providing exact measurements of what reasonably, under reasonable conditions, could protect our community. And if we're talking about a community where we love our trees, we love our hedges, we love our quality of life, safety for the pedestrians and walking, making it a walkable city is paramount. Okay. So I want to clarify that. That's where this hedge ordinance is. Now, in addition to updating the hedge ordinance of just providing the clarity of what constitutes visibility hazards so that our code enforcement officers can more effectively implement it. All right. Then we got into some other issues. It was an opportunity, as I stated as the LPA, every time we have a lot of old ordinances, there's an opportunity whenever we're revising or updating an ordinance to look at the broader picture. And instead of just, correct that, change those wordings, look at the broader picture and update our ordinances, which, because we're a 100-year-old city, a lot of our ordinances and codes are very outdated. They haven't been looked at. They were put in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and maybe they were put in the 40s and updated in the 90s. They're still out of date. And that's a constant project that we have to do ongoing. It's impossible to ever complete it because whenever we update something, there's something else that can change, right? Especially we are very often, much more so now than when our city was first built, is, preempted or required to whatever ordinances and codes we put in have to be, and our city planner and our attorney do a great job of that, of making sure that they comply with federal requirements, whatever they may be, particularly state requirements or county requirements. It's not just us deciding as a city, this is what we want to do. So I'm making all those points so that the residents understand why we're here. Now, as I said, whenever we get the opportunity, and we've done this numerous times, to revise or update a ordinance because either something has happened that requires us to do it, or we've been meaning to do it for a long time, and this is a process that we're doing, we look at the bigger picture. One of the things that we looked at was the issue of not to do with visibility, and that is a whole, and I hope everyone on this council agrees to the importance of the visibility part of that ordinance. This is the kind of thing that, God forbid, should something happen down the road, you will be sure that the very next Monday, we will be putting in an ordinance that ensures visibility. It's, we're having near misses, what you call near misses. And eventually, if we don't rectify it, we're going to have an instance. And unfortunately, when something happens after a tragedy, the decision-making isn't that great. A lot of times it's in fact, it goes overboard because we're trying to compensate for what happened, but by then we have the tragedy. So I want to establish that with the visibility of the hedges and that part of it. Now, what we did add to it is the opportunity to look at hedges as a whole. And we've had, I know I have, I don't know about the rest of the council members, I know our city manager has residents who have complained about the hedges in between houses. When there's two houses and there's very little space between the two houses, and a neighbor has put in a hedge that is very, very tall, and sometimes 10 feet, 12 feet. That hedge is also very wide, but it's also what they're concerned about is the roots. The root system of those hedges going into, they have a bathroom right next door. And those roots, and in fact, we have a resident who was having problems and brought in pictures of the plumber going, you know, the roots from the hedge next to him appears to be from the hedge that's between the two houses, that's very close, going into the plumbing. You know, a lot of our bathrooms are on the side of the house, right? So the thought there was, and I want, later I'll let Sylvia talk, our city planner, was that this is an opportunity to put a restriction on the hedge heights to something that is reasonable. It still provides the privacy, and 8 feet was just what we came up with. It's not a, you know, a requirement that it has to be 8 or 6 or whatever, but that seemed to provide that privacy. But also, many cases, and we're very, very lucky that a lot of our residents, many residents in our community, do a great job of upkeep. You know, we have the yard of the month. They're very proud of their yards and they maintain them. We have a lot of residents that don't. And the hedges are extraordinarily high. And the truth is, the higher the hedge is, the more difficult it is to trim it, to ever get down. You know, once the hedge gets to 12 feet, well, you know what? The cost is too great, so it doesn't get trimmed down. So perhaps from what I'm hearing is, and I want to thank, and I mean this, I want to thank every single person that is here to give us your input. Every single ordinance that we do, and every single meeting, we meet twice a month, second and fourth Mondays of the month. Every single meeting, we have ordinances that we're covering. No, we're not knocking on people's doors to tell you, by the way, we have these 6 ordinances. As you can see, there's a lot here. We have a lot of communication to our residents, and we're posting this information, and please take advantage of all these means to keep engaged and keep up so that you know what's going to be on an ordinance. This is our responsibility to do this. We're complying with our responsibility of trying to improve upon the city and create new ordinances when they're necessary and update existing ordinances when it's necessary or when they're we perceive a need. The other thing I wanted to say with that, and then I'll let the rest of the council speak, of course, is that perhaps what we might consider, and again, the feedback that we're getting is extremely important. And I know that everyone here is really good at maintaining your hedges. So we may want to consider a higher allowance in the backyard hedges, or no restriction on backyard hedges, but maintaining the space between two houses when we have, you know, two houses, the typical setback between, condition between two houses where there's a setback, and then we have a very big hedge of making sure that that doesn't exceed a certain level. And with that, I'll open it up for.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with the sentiment that you just conveyed about the safety, the features of the hedges and the safety and visibility in the front for reasons of, you know, pedestrian safety, traffic, and that's something that we've discussed. I can though say that, so for instance, my house is an older house from the 50s, and neighbor built a brand new house on a double lot. And, you know, the codes changed and they had to raise their floor to a certain amount of inches above the crown of the street. So basically my neighbor's house, of course, that, you know, they're great people, but it's, you know, what people refer to as like a McMansion in the spring. Their house is a lot higher than our house, and their security cameras are looking into our backyard. Now, I don't have hedges in my backyard, But it is a little disconcerting because I know that if I'm in the backyard, I'm on camera. Which that's fine, I guess, but I can certainly empathize with people who want to be able to have the privacy in their backyard with the hedges. And I think that as far as I'm concerned, the height of the hedges and the restrictions that we put into place for the front in order to promote safety, vehicle pedestrian safety, I'm on board with that. I mean, at the county, the 8 feet is the limit for hedges in the backyard, 6 feet for fences, which is the same that we're proposing here, but I'm open to maybe considering something different in the backyard, but I'm not willing to entertain changes like that in the front because I think it's it's meaningful to put those things in place for reasons of safety.
Through the chair. I ditto with Councilman Fedhead. I think that maybe in the backyard, we shouldn't have any restrictions. Perhaps the side setback, perhaps the sides with the hedging shouldn't be going past 3 feet within your 7-foot setback, because I see where hedges on the side get really out of control, so that you can keep that balance. And also to keep a nice trim on the top. So if it looks like it's grown out of proportion, there may be some verbiage that we can put in the ordinance where we can send out code of compliance and say it's not, congruently shaped out. But, what we want to do is just make sure that if you are going to have these hedges, to maintain them. And I think that we put some teeth there, but I am on board with a front yard because that is a safety concern.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You want to say something, Roger?
Yeah, I just think that the city planner has something
sorry.
would like to kind of
Clarify.
Thank you, Sylvia.
some of these aspects.
If you would allow me just a couple of minutes, I just want to make a couple of clarifications. The first one is very simple. Most communities have limits on the height of hedges and fences. And the most common limits for hedges are 8 feet and for fences 6 feet. Now, you look at Coral Gables, you look at Miami-Dade County, you look at Miami Beach, those are the heights actually. But the real clarification that I wanted to make is that even though in this section dealing with fences and hedges, it says that hedges have no limit as to the height. The fact is, and this is something that Roger and I actually overlooked, and we were going to make a recommendation to you, that in the definitions section, which is part of our ordinance, but we didn't touch this, there is a definition of hedge that says a lineal growth of vegetation, this is today, not exceeding the height of 6 feet, planted or cultivated for a purpose. That means that the city has had something in place, which essentially amounts to a regulation that says that no hedge ever, anywhere, can be more than 6 feet. This has been in place, I don't know how long, but obviously the city has not enforced it. However, the rule is there. So what we are proposing is changing to allow more than 2 feet. And our recommendation was going to be to take that limit of 6 feet out of your definition, which really shouldn't be there because it's a definition. The regulation should not be there. But I just wanted to make sure that you all, as you're having this discussion, you know that there actually is a height already in place, which is lower than we're proposing. And that, the change that we're making is basically in adding that height to the regulatory section, not to the definition section. So just kind of wanted to make sure that you all knew that, because I heard a couple of people say we already have something, and it's yes, but not exactly in the place where we're proposing the change.
Thank you, Sylvia. And if you don't mind, just stay at the microphone. We might have more questions for you.
No, I think I'm glad you clarified that. Another disturbing thing always, because when you go through all these years and you wonder where our code enforcement is at.
It's
sorry.
easy. It's easy
the
to
truth.
lose it because that height is not where it should be, right?
Good.
It's in the definitions. So it's easy to miss it.
And that's what I was referring to with our codes. When you have a city like Doral, it's 20 years old. Their codes are within the last 20 years, 25 years, they've made all their codes. They're pretty consistent, and they're consistent with how things are doing our code writing now. Remember that, our city is almost 100 years, and our codes, depending on whatever council was here and, the decade that we're talking about, they vary. There's no magical of, every year we review the thousands.
Some of your sections go back
It's
to the
impossible for
50s.
any city to do that. And, and there's no reason to. The majority of the codes and regulations that we have are effective and they're understood, but there's always going to be things that were put in for, at a certain time and are no longer applicable. And that Sylvia brought to our attention, should we start enforcing hedge heights, it really would be to 6 feet. So again, these are our responsibilities. There's nothing, we shouldn't see this as a blame. This is our responsibility and an opportunity. And like we always do, and we've always tried to do this, it's been very important to me. When we're looking at something, let's just not correct that, not tweak that. Let's look as much as we can. And there's been a lot of times, and Sylvia, JC, and Roger and Heidi have brought it to our attention when we want to look at a really big picture and they're going, look, this is way more than we can, there's too many other regulations and preemptions here. Let's narrow it down. Again, I'll leave it with that. My big concern is the safety issue in the front. The other heights were, I think they're reasonable. I think 8 feet on any hedge is a reasonable height restriction. If we want to go a little bit higher, okay, but there should be with a hedge. And we're not talking about trees. We just passed a comprehensive tree ordinance, updating, not passing it, updating it, revising it, the same thing, to make it more difficult for people to cut down trees, to put the mitigation fees higher. So to discourage residents from cutting down trees because they don't like the leaves or they don't like, whatever, because we are a tree city. And surprisingly, we had very few people complain about that, although they will when they try to do something with their trees. But the purpose of that was to protect our trees. This is hedges. We're not talking about trees. Okay.
To the chair.
Yes, sir.
So, in fairness to, I know our social media and our departments do their best to try to get the word out. I know they are trying, but obviously there's a disconnect. And I tell you, because I feel like I'm pretty involved here and I'm out there a lot. And usually people do not waste any time in stopping me. And I was out last weekend, but ever since this person put this blog and put it on the thing, I have not stopped getting calls this weekend. And then you start bringing to your attention that, well, there's probably some disconnect there of how we're giving this information to others, because everybody's so completely surprised that this thing is on our books. And of course, you start to question. So, okay, so is 8 feet really properly an amount that we need to consider? I still walking down the alley and I see there's some a little bit more. And just you're constantly seeing that the possibilities are there. Definitely in the front, I don't think even the people that called me, the consensus was that the front, they have no issues with the front. I think the safety is super important. And whether it be somebody injured or definitely, God hoping, ever a death, but definitely there's no concessions on the front. But on the back for safety issues, I definitely believe a lot of the reasons the residents that came up here and mentioned that, yeah, even 8 feet, because of the difference. If we go now start worrying about every particular case where the height of the ground is bigger because they had some new construction, like Councilman Fayette's house next door, I think we'll go crazy trying to, have these meetings for variance and so forth. So to me, I would definitely like to remove it, but I'm open to just higher than 8 feet. I think 8 feet is just not, it's not enough. After being there and walking it around myself in my own blocks, I think 8 feet is, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, when I first heard it, it seemed proper. It's like, mine is destroyed because I had ficus before and I got some bug there that kind of messed it up, and I haven't replaced it, but that's my personal situation. But in general, 8 feet seems enough as long, I'm 6'2", as long as you don't have to get on top of a ladder and to look over the neighbors, which you would have to do at 8 feet. But even then, just because of a truck, the height of other properties, I think that 8 might be just not enough. So I'm open to definitely changing it. But definitely the front, the consensus was that, that everybody was okay with it. But I think definitely this has to be amended, in my opinion, further discussed, especially when we got to remove some language there that, you know, is not clear. Because you see all kind of stuff out there and you wonder, well, it's clear, but it's obviously not clear enough to our code enforcement. Correct? Obviously, something there disconnecting it.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you all. I mean, you guys made a compelling case for your backyard. I mean, this is not a one size fits all situation. I live on De Leon and South Royal. I don't have I don't have an alleyway. So I don't have that situation. When the mayor was hit by a car, when that happened, I immediately called the code enforcement officer and asked them to come out because between my neighbor and I, there was a hedge, if you can call it a hedge, that was not in compliance. And my neighbor and I discussed it, and we just figured, look, whatever amount of feet it is from the street, we're just going to cut it off. Limpio, because I mean, it happens to me. I'm backing out of my driveway. I had to keep going slowly, to see where I'm going. So, and so I think that there are variations here of issues, right? And so you all make a compelling issue, your backyard. I would probably feel the same way in terms of, privacy and so forth. At our last meeting, I do have hedges, small one, just a part of the house, but it does block visibility on the corner. It does block visibility. And I was telling my wife, so we're gonna have to remove this part and put the hedges back on that area. And which brings me to a point that's been a concern of mine for a long time, and I've raised it numerous times, if not on council, certainly with city managers and so forth, which is that there are too many intersections in Miami Springs where you cannot clearly see and wind up almost in the middle of the street to be able to see, to proceed. And I think that that's an issue, right? That's a safety issue. That's a driving safety issue. Talking about Lenape Street, for instance, which is, the police has been out there quite a bit of time because that turned into a raceway because there's no stop sign in between for a long period of time. But when you get to an intersection, the stop sign is always before the corner, right? So just to get people to stop, right? Rule is supposed to be you stop at the stop sign and then you inch your way forward so that you can see clearly both sides of it. It's a two-way street to be able to proceed. That's the way it should be. But there are too many intersections where that's not possible. You almost have to go into the middle of the street, on the cross street. So that's something that we've got to definitely has addressed here in this ordinance. So I am not opposed to 8 or 9 feet or whatever, reasonably makes folks feel safe in their own houses and privacy. And I'm glad that, the folks that came up here maintain, their yards and their bushes and, that's the problem. The problem is always enforcement. If whatever we agree on, then that has to be enforced. And to make sure that it looks fine, because not everyone enforces. I mean, not everyone, trims their hedges and not everyone trims. We all know this, right? So we are, as the mayor said, responsible. It is our job, right? To make sure that whatever laws, whatever rules we have in place, first of all, that they are enforced. And secondly, that they're reviewed, right? I mean, I remember looking at something that talked about horses and all kinds of things on Westwood Drive, which, so we have to review these periodically. I was surprised to hear that the hedges is 6 feet. I mean, that's in there. And we can change that, right? But, so I would encourage flexibility on that particular issue. But on things that have to do with roadway safety, especially on corners, that has to be cleared so that everyone can see, both people, pedestrians who are walking can see, and vehicular traffic can have a clear shot on the cross street that they're entering, so they could see both people coming and vehicles. So I think those are the things that I wanted to share. And again, going back to, dissemination of information. And yes, when residents hear about something that maybe, we should have done a better job of getting the word out, but we're dealing with resolutions all the time here. And I appreciate those of you who come out tonight. I really do, because there was a time when I was sitting over there and coming here to talk about speeding on our roads and things of that nature, because those are the kind of things that worry me, right? So I think that's what I wanted to say. So flexibility on the backyard hedges, but we have to be firm on hedges at any way which interfere with the vision and the view of pedestrians and vehicle traffic.
And I think we're all making it pretty clear as far as the safety issue in the front. There's no concessions on that. What we're talking about is, which is part of this ordinance, is the hedges on the sides and in the backyards. So
Well,
I
but
see
if
two
you don't mind,
possibilities here.
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
sir.
I think someone mentioned a particular intersection where the hedges might be overlapping. And
But I
that-
think
that-
we all are, the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
consensus
yeah.
is, no, there can't be and that's our responsibility. And when something occurs, and again, I keep saying near misses. Near misses are situations where we've all experienced them in our life where, but for the grace of God, something bad would have happened. And statistics show that usually there's about 300 near misses before when nothing happens. There's about 30 of those where something happens, but it's a minor injury. In my case, I wouldn't call it minor, but I survived being hit by my neighbor as he's pulling out of his driveway. And again, as the hedge was right there, it was a foot from his driveway. And then, on top of that, there's usually between 1 and 3 really serious tragic incidents. When will they occur? Doesn't matter, but the records are there. When you look back, you go, oh, this was reported, this had happened, this had happened. The other thing I want to state is we're here, the council, available to you 24/7 practically. We're constantly posting that, our email addresses, our cell phone addresses, we're available to you. You can reach out to us at any time, and people do. And a lot of these instances, the gentleman, our resident who was almost hit by a car, called me on a Sunday, and he goes, we have a hedge ordinance, why isn't it enforced? I practically got hit by my neighbor. And that's what is amazing. We're not talking about strangers. We're talking about neighbors to each other. So I think we all agree on that part of it. I think what we are discussing now is hedge heights for backyards. We have something that says 6 feet. It turns out if we're going to enforce something, it says 6 feet. We were allowing the 8 foot gives an increase. And maybe we need to dissect the hedge heights. I'm not talking about the front yards or visibility issues, but between houses, when there's a very close, like most of our homes are, of a certain hedge height there of the 8 feet, and perhaps allowing more in the backyards or making no restriction for the backyard. I mean, I'm open to, again, as I said, to everyone who's spoken, to everyone that's reached out, on these issues. I've gotten a lot of calls about people, very in favor of making sure that it's safe for their children. So many of them are pushing the strollers and riding bikes or letting their kids run, a few feet in front of them while they're walking around the block. But the information that you've provided, the information that when y'all call us, you let us know is really critical to us because we're looking at things, you know, as I always say, this is a collective effort. Our community is a collective effort of input from our residents, our responsibilities, which aren't always popular, but they're nonetheless our responsibilities and what we were elected to do, to have vision and always do what's best interest for our community, for our city. The work of our staff is, you know, paramount. Without them, without their guidance, without their knowledge of what is required and what isn't required, and, you know, we couldn't function. And it's a combined effort. There's never anyone that, you know, this is how it has to be. And every single issue that comes before us, we discuss it you know, we post it and we post it as on our agenda item so that the residents know on Monday, this is what's coming before us. This is what's being discussed, not just by us, by our community. If you're here or you're not here, it's still what's being discussed by our community. Okay, so with that, are there any thoughts on there could be a motion to accept this ordinance as is, or it can be, as Roger said, with recommendations.
Just listening to the discussion that has been had here on the council, there are two, I think, potential amendments that the council, I think, wants to consider. The first is the one that Sylvia just reminded us of, which is the change to the definition section to eliminate any reference to height. That should be dealt with appropriately here in the new section or the new revisions.
Yeah.
And then the second one that I'm hearing from the council is that there's some desire to change the maximum height, at least as it pertains to hedges inside and rear yards.
Yeah. So that would be, actually, it's probably in a couple of different places, but it's section 150.013, parent A, parent 1, and parent E under that, which says hedges located inside and rear yards shall be permitted to a maximum height of 8 feet. That's what it says in this proposal. And it continues, hedges in the side yard that are within the visibility triangle are subject to the height limitations of subsection A1B of the section, which is the 3.5 foot limit within the visibility triangle for side hedges. So if you wanted to change the height in this language for side and rear yards to a different maximum height, this is where we would do it. There's a couple of other instances where maybe we need to look at. I mean, I don't know if you want to keep it sort of consistent at the hedges at the same height, except for that a portion of the hedge that falls within the visibility triangle, in which case you may also want to say, because we have language under A in this same section that says hedges located in front yard shall be permitted to a maximum height of 8 feet, except within the visibility triangle. So if you have a very wide lot, you could have a hedge go up to 8 feet right now, except within that area that is the visibility triangle. There's another portion, another subsection here that says that trees may be permitted in the visibility triangle, provided that foliage is cut away between 3.5 feet and 8 feet. So maybe to make it consistent, wherever you change for the maximum height for side and rear hedges, then those other two instances that mention the 8 feet might want to be consistent with whatever the change is.
Through the chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I think the goal here really for the rear yard sector is we want to make sure that our residents keep their backyards maintained, right? I don't know what type of verbiage we would need unless we come up with a new height, because right now we have 6 and I'm not okay with 6. Because if they want to go and start reinforcing 6, I have a problem. I personally have a problem. So I don't know if maybe we should come up with a new height. Like, let's say worst case scenario that I've seen, I have maybe 11 feet. If you can maintain that, but we don't have any verbiage here to tell them, what, like, okay, so let's say there's no height restriction. If someone calls code compliance, I need somebody to go out because this person's hedges is not well maintained. They need to come and cap off the top because it's not square. I mean, what if they don't want it square? You know, so when I get into that technicality of a complaint and we're trying to groom and keep something nice and tidy as we're mentioning here, the only way you can get something nice and clean back there is to actually provide some sort of height. So they are, let's say you're maintaining those hedges at least twice a year. Because that's what, for me, that personally, I do like at least twice a year. Whether you do it or not, I think there needs to be some verbiage where it does get capped off, or we say, hey, you know, you need to maintain your, no one's going to be taking note of this person, my neighbor did it this, okay, so she should be doing it 6 months later. I'm not going to be doing that. So what would be a reasonable height for the backyard to consider safety? I have 8, I'm comfortable with 8, but some people have high elevation, some people don't. Some people are concerned someone's gonna get on a truck and behind the alley and look over. I don't know if 10 is good. I don't know if maybe if you have a single family home, you shouldn't go past 2 feet past your roof, you know, just to make sure. And it doesn't matter which elevation you have. If you have 2 feet above your roof height, I think you should be okay.
What if you have 2 stories?
Right. So if you have a 2-story, then you're shorthanded, because I would go by a single family home. Me personally, I don't know, but if you have a 2-story home, I'm sorry, but we can't go up to 30 feet, right? And I have yet to see that, but I can't say that's not going to happen. So I think we need to come up with something just so that we can actually reinforce the maintenance of. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because we have hedges that do grow on people's side rear within their 7-foot setback. Some of them are almost touching their houses. And I want to reiterate, for Public Works, I need that when Public Works is going out and doing their runs and picking up trash, I've seen several, because we have to tag team. So if Public Works sees something, the trucks are hitting these hedges, they need to report it back to code compliance, because I see hedges going in halfway into the alley. It's bad. And that's a wear and tear on our equipment. It belongs to all of us, right? So that's already something that can be enforced. I'm just letting you know, JC, so you can maybe have a talk with your staff. But I don't know if as a council we want to come up with something so that we can, but I think 8 is good for me, but I can see where a little bit more leverage can be with some code compliance enforcement.
Councilman?
I don't know.
So the only thing that we have that refers to height restriction now is within the definition.
Right.
Which is 6.
6.
And I'm gonna assume that there's lots of people that are above 6, and there have
I would imagine so.
been tons of people coming in and complaining about that. I think that what we have consensus on is about those sight lines and the height restrictions in the front for safety reasons. So I propose that we just codify that, right? The things in the front yard, and then remove the 6 foot because it's irrelevant, because it's not being enforced, because it's unreasonable, and take that out of the definition section, and then just leave the rear alone. I mean, the one thing that strikes me, and again,
Only the rear, not the side.
rear and
I want to make
side.
sure that I
So-
understand
yes, you're
when we
right,
take
you're
the
right.
direction, because
But
again, we have a lot of, like,
Right.
we're gonna have a lot of different things happening
Right.
now. If we do it that way.
right,
So I want to make sure that I understand if we're
sides
dealing
and
with
rear
front and rear.
in the backyards, side and rear in the backyards, because I know that you could have.
There's no reference to a backyard in our
Right.
code, but that's essentially what it
Yes,
forms.
Right. And so you could have sides in the front, so long as they stay within those safety
The
triangles
visibility
and
triangle,
visibility,
yeah.
then you're fine. Again, I'm going to just mention again, a standard door is just shy of 7 feet. You know, if you've got a neighbor like I do, love them, they're good people. They've got their security cameras about what it looks like right there, right underneath the eave of their roof. It looks inside. So if that's an issue, heck, I've called my neighbor and asked him, hey, did you see something in the past? I mean, I'm not complaining about my situation, but we haven't been getting complaints necessarily about the heights for sides and rears. I do think we have consensus about the sightline, safety issues in the front. I propose that we remove the 6 foot from the definitions because it's needless to even have it there. And I think we just move forward. And if it's something that we have to address down the line, then we will. Otherwise, we're going to spend time. I don't see how we're going to come to an arbitrary height now. This is just going to extend beyond. I say we just remove the 6 foot height, that it refers to in the definition section. Do the stuff in the front, leave the rears and the side and rear.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, so motion to approve 8C with respect to height restrictions for visibility and safety in the front, and then just strike the 6 foot restriction from the definition section and leave rear and sides,
Okay.
silent, basically.
Second.
To the chair.
Discussion, let's do this discussion now. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'm on board with first and second part. What I'd like to see is some verbiage where we have hedges being maintained away from the structure. Because if police have to go and access your house for whatever reason, and they have, I'll tell you, there are hedges that are almost touching their own house. It's not, it's their own house. So if there needs to be an accessibility point to the backyard for whatever reason, it's gonna, not only does it look bad, right? But it's also an issue for accessibility. Whether it's gonna be police or a family member in an urgency, and also to ultimately take care of their home, right? Because if now you're gonna start having these shrubs growing over their houses very soon enough. So whether, I think that there needs to be some verbiage as to that, Sylvia. I don't know if that's
Okay.
something that can be.
Under the maintenance section that we have here, which we have made some amendments to, we have added the standards, standard landscape practices for maintenance in accordance with the most recent Miami-Dade County Landscape Manual, which provides guidance on how to prune and trim both trees and shrubs, as well as the National Arborist Standards and or ANSI 8300 standards. All of these are different manuals. Some of them are national, which provide guidance on how hedges and trees should be pruned and trimmed in terms of the width, and so on. I mean, I'm not a landscape architect, so I don't know it all by heart, but I know that that's how it provides.
That's fine. We can have that, but I want something specifically in our ordinance where it's immediately accessible to a resident, saying that your hedge has to be maintained 3 feet away against your side.
Okay, I see.
You understand? Because there could be a lot of standards here, and that's a base to start off. But I personally, I find it very intimidating to have to go here and look
Okay.
at. I want straight to the eye where I see, okay, my shrub or my hedge has to be 3 feet away from my property structure.
And that facilitates what Councilwoman Bravo was talking about, of having easy to read, easy to measure. We can all measure 3 feet. Meeting the standards and all this is a more complicated thing. So that, and again, the whole reason that we were doing this with the visibility for the hedges is there was something there, but it was very left up to the code enforcement if it's, impeding visibility. Now we have a certain measurement. This is how you do it. And, it's easier to comply with. Our city manager wanted to say something.
I do want to caution you. This is second reading. If we keep making tweaks, I don't know how substantial these changes are, and we may have to go back to first reading. That's my first point. The second point is, I would recommend maybe allow us to work if the council wants. There's some language that we included in there regarding maintenance of your hedges. Allow us to work with code enforcement, train them what they need to do, and see how it works. And if it's a problem in the near future, or if it's not enough, then come back.
But code compliance they can't do anything. They can't act upon anything based on the way that the maintenance items are proposed. in the
Well, no,
ordinance.
it does reference, the Miami-Dade County standards, so
But
we
I
can
wanna be
implement.
there. I want an item in there specifically because I think that it's easier for the consumer to read that off of it should be our personal, because what if it doesn't say it?
That's fine.
I rather just reiterate the term in there, and it's just easier than to have to go to this.
That's fine.
We had
My-
somebody that just came in and said, what does that mean?
My concern there would just be what I said
Okay.
before is and I don't know, Roger, you'd let me know. If something becomes too significant of a change, it no longer qualifies as a minor change and it has to go back to first reading. So
Okay, so
that's what I'm.
Let's do this. I know Councilman Fahet proposed motion, and we have a first and a second on that, and that's a very simple one. I see no reason that any of us can justify something that's a safety issue when we've had near misses is to say, well, let's keep waiting on it. I mean, we're talking about something very clear. So I would like to propose, well, I'm going to call a vote for the second, for the motion that Councilman Fahet made. And that would then leave the hedge heights for side yards and backyards and all as another discussion, because obviously it was put in there to give us a reference, a requirement, but we've heard from residents as to why it needs more thought put into it, right? Okay. Did you want to say something,
Yeah,
Councilman, before?
I just wanted to say that we should just take the win, right? That we have consensus about what we want in terms of safety. We have that. There's maintenance standards already within it. I think that this hasn't been an issue. We're doing something good. Let's take the win and take the simple victory right here and just vote.
Okay. And Roger, Councilman Fahet's motion would be specifically
Correct.
codify that,
Wonderful.
and then the other thing would be brought back as a revision to the existing.
It would just be the site.
That would be a
Would-
separate.
Right,
that would be a
and,
separate ordinance.
okay,
Okay.
all right, so, is there any more discussion? I'm gonna call the vote.
Just to
Yes, sir.
clarify,
Yes, for my benefit, because now I'm confused.
the Vice Mayor,
Faces on it.
Much, like, look at the,
Little confusion out there.
our minds.
as I understood it, the Vice Mayor's motion was to approve this ordinance with two amendments. The first being an amendment to the definitions section, 150.002 to eliminate the restriction on height or of hedges to 6 feet. So we would eliminate just the 6 feet reference to height there, and then to eliminate any references in section 150.013 that reference side and rear yard hedge height restrictions.
So through the chair, there was two amendments, right, of removing. So why can't we do a third additional amendment of the 3-foot side structure setback?
I'm only repeating what the motion that was on the floor.
No, I know, but I was interpreting that we couldn't do any more changes because if we had any more, then it would have to be reset and go back to a first reading.
But that is not a removal, though, because we don't have any language in the code that says that your maximum width for a hedge has to be X, Y, or Z.
Got it. Okay.
That's
All right.
I mean, I'm not sure if it qualifies as substantial. I'm gonna let Roger indicate that.
I
Just to kind of kill
Yeah.
3 birds at once. I'm just.
Look, I think this title is broad enough that it does allow regulations on hedges as to location, but I will say I don't think that there's anything concrete right now that staff or that legal has reviewed that can just be simply inserted.
Got it.
All-
Okay.
Okay, any more discussion?
Nope.
Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Fahet,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bravo.
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you. Okay, we move on to the consent agenda. And we have 2 items on the consent agenda. Does anyone have an item they want to pull for discussion?
Mayor,
Is there a motion? Yes.
motion to approve 9A and B.
All right,
Second.
any discussion now? All right, I just want to say, thank you, JC, and to our finance director for item 9B. Really the idea behind this, adjusting the reserve to give us that instead of a set point that's so difficult to meet, like as JC said, every year is a whole new situation. And this gives us the range and it's in accordance. JC, I just wanted you to talk a little bit about that, how it's in accordance with best practices,
Yes,
financial best practices, because I think it's important for residents to have the opportunity to hear that.
Yes, the GFOA came out with it, GFOA meaning the Government Finance Officers Association, came out with an article, suggesting that cities rethink the way they establish reserve policies. A lot of cities, and us included.
We're talking
right?
about the budget.
We're talking
reserve.
about the budget and our savings account, basically. And so it says you have to keep 25% or 20%, and they've always had a number there. But what the article says is you should consider a range, for lean years and years that are, problematic. You can go as low as, in my, they said 15, I'm recommending 18%, and a max of 25%. There's obviously some people are like, well, why would you restrict how much you have in your savings account? Because at some point, especially in a community like this, if your savings account get too high, I mean, if I were a resident, I'd be like, why aren't you guys spending any money? Why are you guys taxing us and saving all the money? So that's why you don't want to save too much. I mean, have too much money into reserve because you're not spending it. You're taxing and not spending. So this proposal that we have here satisfies. First of all, it helps us balance the budget that the one that we're recommending today, or that we just approved right today. And it also gives us the flexibility to, in good years, tackle capital improvement projects. I've seen a lot of deferred maintenance here. I don't want to do that anymore. If I see there's an issue, there's a lot of beautification that I would like to see, to tackle. But I like to stabilize first financially. And once we start accumulating, I'd like to obviously focus on some of those issues.
Thank you, JC. So I'm very appreciative of this proposal that you have of just, and again, it's more eyes looking at an issue and figuring out ways that, we can meet our responsibilities and also be prepared for issues that may come up down the road. So with that, if there's any more discussion, is there a motion? Oh, there is a motion, one, two. Sorry. Okay, call the vote.
Vice Mayor Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you. We move on to agenda item 12A.
Yes, Mayor. This request comes at a request, actually, and I included the email in the backup. A resident approached me, Carlos Gomez, Gogo, as some of you know him as. He's the gentleman that does the American flags on Curtis Parkway for, I think, the 4th of July. And he approached me, set up a meeting with me, and he wants to do something on Curtis Parkway during the holidays, in which he hangs large ornaments, and then wraps some ribbon around, no lights or anything like that, wrap some ribbon around at least, well, he wants to do 2 blocks on Curtis Parkway. And he's going to get donors and sponsors to do it all. It's not going to cost us anything. I like the idea. I don't like to, when somebody, one thing about Miami Springs is there's a lot of civic pride here, a lot. And I don't want to put a damper on somebody's civic pride, and especially with something that I think would look nice. And something that to me seems pretty harmless. So I like the idea. I bring it to you because I want the council to approve it. I think that in the background, he included pictures of what they look like. And anyways, I'm bringing it for your approval.
JC.
Thank you, JC.
Sorry.
I just want to say with this resident, and as I was telling JC, who is our city manager since this last year, this is a really typical example of, how fortunate we are in this community, of how many times throughout the years, if you've lived in this community for years and years and years, that a lot of the best ideas the best initiatives, the best projects we have are really a resident coming up and saying, look, we'd like to do this, we'll help, because it's not just the idea, it's and our civic clubs have been instrumental in that. This resident started the flags on Curtis, which has been taken over by the Rotary Club. And the Rotary Club and that civic club have taken on that project since then. I'm all for this. It's another, in past experience, he also did the lights on the bridge for 1 year. So he's given us numerous examples of just doing real quality work projects, and very appreciative to him, the support that he gets from other residents of other organizations, and to all the other residents throughout the years that, have.
Now, this
built
does
on
include,
things.
they will put at the bottom of each tree, this is what he was suggesting, put like a little, whoever donates, they'll put a little tree with their name or their company name, but no hashtag, whatever, have to be actual entity.
Sponsored, who's sponsoring the tree, and that's it.
And it'll be
Okay.
small.
All right, do you need a vote on this, JC?
To the
I
chair.
think we can go down to consensus. I mean,
Through the chair, I have a comment on this
Yes.
item. So I like the idea of the decorations for Christmas, a beautiful,
Holidays.
right,
Holiday.
holidays. For me, it's Christmas. I love the idea of the Christmas balls and all that stuff to beautify our city during the holidays. What I'm not a big fan of is if they want to sponsor, that's great. I wouldn't mind recognizing them at a council meeting with a list of names, maybe have them come to the meeting, put it in our newsletter. But every time we get something like donated or something, there always has to be like a sticker on it. And I think it kind of takes away from beautifying the city. And now we're going to start labeling every tree or labeling it. Like, I think, I don't know why we can't do something like Coral Gables and not have to label where it came from. If we can just do a general recognition of the council for the ones that's sponsored, because if I wanted to sponsor a tree and put, I don't even want my name, because I think my name is going to look bad there. It's not part of the decoration, me personally speaking. I just would really like to get into, sponsor from the heart, come to the council meeting. We'll recognize you. We'll put you in the newsletter and keep it simple. But every time I realize that this city has a thing of when it comes to sponsoring, we have to put like tags on everything that we do. And I think that for me, it's just not a tasteful thing to do. Everybody had, in my opinion, if we want to decorate, we keep it clean. It's beautiful, but it's like everything always has to come with some sort of tag. And I'm just trying to understand why.
through the chair.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean,
Because you know a lot about this.
no, well, the Christmas trees that a lot of the civic groups have been putting all over town, and they're going to continue to decorate our beautiful little town when we become this one of the top holiday towns in South Florida. But I think that there's a way. I think we mentioned some of the civic groups actually wanted to see how they can be recognized as the ones contributing to this. So maybe not every tree or every, maybe we can do a little section where you kind of put the families that donated for this, just like they do with the bricks and all these other stuff that we see out there. But I don't know, maybe not every single tree, but
Those are fundraisers. The bigs are fundraisers at the
Yeah.
But
Christmas.
this is, in essence, they're raising funds for this.
yeah, so
But
Leonard, my friend here, he put lights on all of Westward, but you don't see any labels. He just generously just gave the lights. You guys put on the Christmas trees. There was no labeling there too. It was beautiful. We got recognition. We know who did it. And now I think it was a nice thing. We didn't see any markings or anything. So
Yes.
Leonard, do you want to say something?
No, this isn't, no, we're not talking. this-
I know
it was-
that you
this is-
you
it
don't.
was a group.
Oh no, I thought it was you.
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, it was a group of.
Other
yes.
business owners.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
All right,
whatever.
let's do this.
You're always giving. It
Does
doesn't matter.
somebody else want to say anything about
That's-
this? JC, do you?
It's all good.
you need a-
your consensus, the consensus
A
is to
consensus.
accept the recommendation there. That's all I need.
Okay, but the recommendation then will be, yes, sir, you want to say something?
No, no,
Okay.
I'm just
All right.
nodding my head.
All right.
There's consensus.
It's
Okay.
Right, so let me just say, the recommendation that JC proposed with the you know, somebody's donating and doing it and they want to put a little plaque with
And
their.
I will speak with GoGo and make sure that it's not
It's
a
nothing.
huge sign or
Okay,
anything.
is there consensus for this recommendation? Yes, yes, yes.
Wait, I need, what should I do? What should I do?
Jackie, is there a consensus or not?
I guess, I
Centene?
guess.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
all right.
definitely.
Okay, we have 4. Jackie, do you want to register yes or no?
Sure, sure.
Yes.
In the spirit of the
Yes.
holiday season.
Okay, good,
Spirit
good,
of
good.
the
All right,
holiday.
let's move on. Okay, we need to move on.
I'm paying it forward.
Okay.
This is getting a little too down to the weeds here. All right, Councilman
What is it?
Santeen, the next
Well-
agenda item is 12B.
Yeah, so in abundance of caution, as the president of the Rotary Club, I will recuse myself from this discussion.
He's a very popular guy.
President, Councilman.
President-
Santeen, you
Santeen,
just,
we'll
you
let you
do
know
way
when you
too
can
much,
come back.
you know?
Through the chair,
All right.
I'm also recusing myself because I am
Oh, but you.
spouse of the president-elect
I
of
recuse myself
the
'cause I'm tired.
Rotary Club.
Who's going to speak on this? Is it JC?
Yes,
Oh,
I'm gonna introduce it,
Okay,
but that's what Mr. Leonard is here for.
okay.
And Mayor, if I may, just
Yes,
for 1
sir.
second, just to clarify for the record, Councilman Santeen and Vice Mayor Fahed have filled in the forms required for the conflict declaration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So in lieu of Councilman Santeen is the one that requested this discussion, but he's
Yes.
going to have Charlie Leonard
Let me
and
introduce
JC
it.
speak on his behalf. Okay.
We received a request from the Rotary Club. They would like to do in December 21st, and I put there a copy of their flyer that they created, a 5K run on December 21st. They call it Dashing Through the Springs. The point of it is it's a fundraiser. They want to raise funds for not only the Rotary Foundation, but they also want to raise funds. They want to split it, and they want to also donate to the Centennial Celebration. So they've come up with a route and everything. I provided that as well, and they're asking for the city to approve of it because it's going to require road closures, but then also to cover the cost of the police, for the event, as far as it would be in overtime. And I know what you're going to ask me, how much is it going to be? And it's about $2,031 to cover for the 5K. The thing about a 5K is that it doesn't last very long. It's only a couple of hours, about maybe 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours with setup and stuff. So that's the request.
Would the circle be closed?
No, you will see the route is included there. It's a little different than the
Okay,
other routes
yes.
that we've done.
Okay.
They've actually taken they've taken this route very serious. They want to highlight some of the beauty of Miami Springs. So they're going through, the kind of like the heart right around. They even run by I think it's going to start at the mansion and then end there as well.
It's a safe route.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
I just have one thought on this. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I just think that given how much we eat at Christmas time, maybe it should be on December 28th.
Okay. I do like that, we're not closing down the circle because as we know, as much as we enjoy having, it impacts our businesses. Our businesses there, suffer whenever we're closing down the circle for any kind of event. So, Charlie, is there anything you wanted to say about that JC didn't? Speak at the mic so it's recorded, so the people at home can hear us.
The thought behind it was that there would be an opportunity I'm not a runner, so I really don't understand, but
But you give turkeys at running events a lot at Thanksgiving. No, I'm saying that because personally, he gives a lot of turkeys during our turkey trot as awards for the winners and raffles.
But the idea was to have these runners that don't know what Miami Springs is to participate in this every year, and we wanted them to see our neighborhoods, and that's why we avoided the circle. We wanted them to go through Curtis Parkway, Hunting Lodge, the Curtis Mansion. I think that's pretty much what the route looks like. So it doesn't really get into that. And the idea was to raise monies Because as you all know, the Rotary, most of the fundraisers that we do is we spend it back and give it back to the community. And we thought, well, this would be a great opportunity to maybe start another tradition in Miami Springs. I think dashing through the spring sounds pretty cool. And raise money for the Rotary and for the Centennial, which is going to be a very, very special event for our city.
Okay, thank you. So do you need consensus on this or a vote?
I would like a vote just to make sure that you guys are okay with us.
Okay.
Through the chair,
Covering the
Yes,
cost.
sir.
motion to approve 12B.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion? Call the vote, please.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The
That's
motion
cute.
carries.
Who's gonna dress up to do this like
Could
this?
you let Councilman
You are?
President Santine and
Miami Sprotery, that's cute.
back
Is
in
it-
and thank you, Roger. Okay, so we move to reports and recommendations. Roger, any reports for us? From our city attorney?
No reports, just that it's an excellent evening and I enjoy seeing all of you.
Thank you. All right, city manager.
Yes, Mayor, I just have two things. At the next meeting, I will be attending virtually. I have it's the ICMA conference, which is the second conference. There's two conferences that I attend to every year for my annual credits. And unfortunately, this one, it conflicts every year. I've never had a conflict, but this year I have a conflict with a council meeting, but I will attend virtually. So just want to let you know that. And I also want to let you know that September 6th, I think, no, 5th, sorry. September 5th marked 1 year that I started, and it's been a great year. So I thank you guys for a wonderful year, and I look forward to many, many more.
Thank you, JC. Okay, let's see, we'll start with the city council, vice mayor.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you to everybody up here for your hard work and for helping us make the best decisions for the city. Thank you for the staff. We lowered the millage rate, which a month and a half ago, I thought probably couldn't happen. So I'm very happy for that. So again, thank you. I'm honored to serve with you guys.
Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you to the staff, to our finance director. We're finally paying off the investment here through the lowering of the millage. I knew that we can do it. It was just a matter of picking through the weeds. I also do want to thank my council members up here. Without you guys, I don't know. I get so many different perspectives and we just always come to some sort of resolution or solution. And I just want to take a quick moment of silence for a beautiful soul that left this world. Dr. Eileen McDonough from the Women's Club. She passed away on August 27th. She's been on our hearts. Maria is also part of the Women's Club and knew Eileen very well. Very accomplished woman. So I just want to show her a little bit of respect and give her a moment of silence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Santeen?
Also want to congratulate you, JC, and also Chris is not here, but we definitely one of our better decisions this council to hire two positions and that have made a big difference already. We can see the difference. So we thank you for your commitment. And obviously the same thing always said about this council. It's a good council to work with. I feel at the end of the day, we have our differences, but there's not a real difficult contention between us, and we can come to some, happy mediums. And so I'm happy that we have this kind of group in front of me, and you've made it easy for me since I became on council. So thank you. And every time I hear stuff for the holidays, I get excited because, my whole goal is to get this town like the little Christmas town that everybody in this country loves to go into. So we'll continue to do our best. Thank you.
Councilman Vasquez?
I think we had a good meeting. I think it was very productive. I appreciate our flexibility with input from our residents to be able to right? Be open and accommodating wherever possible. And so Roger and Sylvia, thank you all for keeping us right on the straight and narrow and clarifying for us what can and cannot be done. And just generally speaking, I think that I think you said it best, Mayor. We continue to review our codes and our laws and because wherever needed, we have to make those adjustments. And that's one of our basic tenets, right? As a council. So I have no announcements, so I'm good.
Thank you. Okay, and on my part, thank you, Councilwoman, for mentioning the moment of silence for Dr. Eileen McDonald, just a beloved member of this community, a dean at Barry University, and president of the Women's Club. And she will be greatly missed. And there's a service tomorrow at Blessed Trinity tomorrow morning for those of you in the community that knew her and want to attend. And later a luncheon at the Women's Club. I also wanted to mention, well, for JC, what a way to cap off your year, huh? With a lowering of taxes, and I have to say it again. I mean, we're talking about a lowering of residents' taxes at a time when inflation is huge. These aren't ordinary times. And he and our finance director, Chris, and every single member of our departments, director in our departments and their staff, worked to make it happen for us. So we're, again, great cap off for your year anniversary. I also wanted to mention in closing that 9/11 is today's 9/9. So in 2 days, it'll be almost 25 years of the anniversary of 9/11. Let's not forget. I always feel like, we're a different country before 9/11 than we've been since then. A little more cautious, certainly more jaded, more, but certainly more grateful to be part of our country. So please don't forget on Wednesday, take a moment to, and if you haven't seen it, we watched something on 60 Minutes last night, a beautiful documentary to the firefighters of just highly recommend you watching that if you have the time. So with that, thank you all. God bless the United States and Miami Springs, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.
I gotta fix all those hedges, the ones that, even though they need to be removed, so there's some bug.
You're gonna what?
You have to go review them. There's some bug. Yeah.
Well, we had a little bit.
Was it county issue or?
County. No, they all three have services. It's just identifying who calls them up. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.